All right, guys, welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. And before we get into it, I wanted to go over a couple huge performers this week. At the quarterback position, we had CJ Stroud scoring 41.8 points. That is the highest a rookie has ever scored in fantasy football. So to have the day CJ Stroud, Josh Dobbs also came in at QB5 with 24.9 points, which we were not sure if he was going to play, but Jaren Hall got that concussion. Rashad White, running back 1, 27.9 points, have a day. And Keaton Mitchell, running back 5, 20.4 points. Tank Dell, wide receiver 1, 29.6 points. And on the same team, you had Noah Brown, wide receiver 3, 27.3 points. Going to the tight ends, this is a tight end anomaly week. I'm going to go through this quick, but it is also very surprising. Dalton Schultz led all tight ends in scoring with 27. So you had top three position players on the Texans this week. Stroud, Dell, and Schultz. That's just crazy. Komet came in at number 2 with 23.5. Cade Otton, 23 points, tight end 3. Tight end 4, Ferguson, 22.1. Jonnu Smith, 21 points at 5. Taysom, 20.8 at 6. Andrews 17 at 7, Kincaid 16.1 at 8. We've never seen
the tight ends were scoring.
We have never seen the top 10 tight ends all score like this. And just through tight end, whereas Irv Smith was tight end 16 with 11.6 points. We have never seen, I don't recall seeing 16 different tight ends score over 10 points. So I just wanted to mention that because this is going to be a lot of crazy things happen this week, and we had to start with that just to show you, like, as a precursor.
Yeah.
So getting right into it, the Dolphins and Chiefs went to Germany. In the first half of this game, it was 21-0, looked like a blowout. Of course, the Chiefs have done this in multiple games, gone up in the first half and done absolutely nothing in the second half on offense. Their defense came through and carried. There was a fumble return for a touchdown, which I thought was very weird because as soon as Tyreek caught the ball, his forward progress was stopped, driven back 3 yards, and then fumbled, which apparently when certain teams are playing, because it has not just happened to the Chiefs, but the refs this year have been very inconsistent deciding when forward progress is stopped or they just let it keep going. So that's been interesting. Getting right into the stats, though, Tua was 21 for 34, 193 yards, a touchdown, and a fumble lost, coming in at 12.4 points. Not a very good day. Derek did call Tua as his sit of the week, and if you were to have benched Tua for a guy like CJ Stroud, he came up big.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert finally had another decent day. 12 attempts, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, didn't catch anything, 14.5 points. It wasn't a super crazy week, but it definitely didn't lose you this week. Salwan Ahmed, you weren't playing him, but he got 3.2 points, 3 attempts, 4 yards, 2 catches on 3 targets. As far as the snap share went in the running back room, Raheem Mostert led with 56%, and Ahmed was the kind of backup, still coming in with more snaps than Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson only played 11 snaps. Ahmed played 19, but in his 11 snaps, Jeff Wilson got 2 carries for 6 yards, also caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 32 yards. I'd imagine Devon Achane is supposed to be coming back relatively soon. They have this bye next week, so we'll see how that works out. I think he might end up taking his lead spot back. McDaniel said himself that when he gets back, they plan on giving him his role back. So this running back room could get a little nasty with Jeff Wilson coming back. And McDaniel himself said that if they have 4 healthy running backs, they plan on playing 4 running backs. So could get gross.
Yeah.
Durham Smythe made an appearance with 3 catches for 17 yards. Nothing special, 4.7 points. Not a guy we're looking at still. Tyreek would have had a better week if that fumble didn't count, but he caught 8 passes on 10 targets, 62 yards. 1 rushing attempt for 3 yards. Like I said, he lost that fumble, so 12.5 points. Not great for Reek. You were hoping, revenge game. He does a little more than that, but he didn't. The Dolphins as a whole didn't really do too much. As you can see, they only scored 14 points.
Yeah.
But Jalen Waddle, another fairly disappointing outing. 3 catches on 6 targets for 42 yards, 1 attempt for 12 yards, giving him 8.4. We know Jalen Waddle isn't necessarily a volume guy. He tends to get it done on his efficiency and big plays. Better weeks should be to come. We know the Chiefs are a top 3 defense. And yeah, I mean, we're moving on to the next one. They have the bye next week, so obviously you're not going to get a chance to play him. But after that, he should be good. And yeah, the snaps, Jalen Waddle only played 54% of the snaps. Cedric Wilson actually played 65%, played 7 more snaps than Waddle did. And Cedric Wilson caught 1 pass on his 5 targets for 31 yards and a touchdown. Very well should have had 2. 100% should have had 2 touchdowns on 2 catches. Had the game tying, he was wide open. I don't know if you saw the play, but I don't know if I've seen a worse pass from Tua. It was not that far. I'm serious. It was like maybe a 30-yard pass, and it just died. Like halfway through, it just died in the middle. Yeah, that was concerning as far as, like everybody's touting Tua as this super elite quarterback and then it's like, dog, you have to make that throw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to at least get it to your receiver. Am I worried about Tua and the Dolphins moving forward? No, not necessarily, but we've seen them struggle against good defenses. We've seen them struggle a few times, and this isn't the first week that Tua has had a poor performance. So hopefully moving forward, that gets a bit better. But yeah, like I said, Cedric Wilson had the 1 touchdown, should have had 2, finished with 10.1 points. He is very clearly the wide receiver 3 in this room, even with the addition of Chase Claypool, who played 14 snaps. Wilson's playing 41. So now that he's healthy, he's back in that role. Berrios has only played 27% of snaps. So it's clear if you need another receiver to add, the wide receiver 3 on the Dolphins might not be such a bad option.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Chiefs side of the ball, a very lackluster performance. One of their touchdowns came from that fumble I was telling you about. It was an amazing play by the Chiefs defense. The guy gets stopped, turns around, and pitches it to his teammate who runs it for it. I mean, it was an incredible play. But that was also 7 of the 14 points that the Chiefs happened to score. So another not very impressive day by the Chiefs offense. I mean, this was not a great Dolphins defense. This is 3 weeks that we've seen. You could say, yes, it's a divisional game, but we've seen the Broncos defense hold them to 9 points. And then the first week they played them, they didn't hold them, under 20, but it was still a very close game.
Yeah.
And then this week, so in the past 2 weeks, the Chiefs offense, did they get in? They didn't get in the end zone last week, did they? They scored 9 points.
No, 3 field goals. Yeah.
They've scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks against the Broncos and the Dolphins. And I mean, they are the Chiefs, but we've seen teams like the Ravens have started, their offense has gotten in gear. The Bengals offense has gotten in gear. It's like, you got to start picking it up. You're not just going to coast through this, but that's another topic. And yeah, Patty finished 20 of 30, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 attempts for 24 yards, 1 fumble lost, 15.8 points. This game as a whole, we were expecting fireworks. We got wet gunpowder. Isaiah Pacheco, 16 attempts, 66 yards, did not catch his lone target, so he finished with 6.6 points. Another very poor week for Pacheco, a guy that I've been speaking highly of, was doing great throughout the beginning of the season. And yeah, after that second Broncos game, it hasn't looked too good. Jerick McKinnon, he was someone that I brought up if you wanted to throw him in just because he has that ability to get that touchdown. And if he doesn't get it, he'll burn. Well, he got it this week.
Yeah.
1 attempt, 2 yards, 2 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown. We know the story with any of these Chiefs players that aren't, Travis Kelce, and I guess you could put Pacheco in because he gets the volume. He got 16 rushing attempts. But it's like you cannot expect volume out of too many of these guys, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice this game only caught 2 passes on 2 targets. Fortunately, for 17 yards and a touchdown, so he finished with 9.7 points. Travis Kelce did not fare so well in this game. He caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 14 yards, 4.4 points. Chiefs will also be on a bye next week. I'm not mentioning any of the other 13 no-name guys on the Chiefs. It's not worth it. So, yeah, that'll be it for this one. Both of these teams were very disappointing. I think these European games are not
They're ugly. They're ugly.
idea.
Every time they're ugly.
Not too many of these teams travel well.
No.
And then asking them to go all the way to a different country. Yeah, it hasn't looked so great so far, but it makes them a lot of money. So they're not going to stop doing it. That's all for that game. Next week, we have the Patriots and Colts in Germany.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to have fun waking up at 6:30 for that one.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about teams and not traveling well. Well, the Cardinals traveled to Cleveland to take on the Browns. And I remember talking about, could we see a game with Clayton Tune getting single-digit completions, less than 100 yards? Well, he got 11 completions on 20 attempts for 58 yards. Threw 2 picks. Carried it 5 times, 28 yards. Finished 1.12 fantasy points. I mean, obviously, Kyler Murray is slated to return this week. That is going to be a huge boost for the offense as well. James Conner, the Cardinals said that they're hoping to open the practice window. Will he return week 10? I'm not completely sure. But if it's not week 10, it does seem like week 11 at the very latest. James Conner will be playing football again. The 2 running backs.
And Gannon said he's excited to get him back and get it. So it's like it's not going to be any kind of... He's getting right back to his role.
Oh,
so
I mean,
that is great to hear. They need him.
When he's not there, you have Tony Jones and Keontae Ingram. Tony Jones got 2.7 fantasy points. Ingram got 0.8. Like this, and it's what we said. This was a horrible week. I mean, the only 2 guys were really thought about starting this week. I mean, Hollywood obviously finished 4 catches, 24 yards on 8 targets, 6.4 fantasy points. Trey McBride, we talked about how the Browns had been carved up by tight ends of recent, but those tight ends quarterbacks were not Clayton Tune.
He was just thrown to the wolves, man. First start in the NFL in Cleveland against that defense. It was never going to be good.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely terrible. Trey McBride, 3 catches, 22 yards, 5 targets, 5.2 fantasy points. Rondell Moore scored 1.8. Greg Dortch scored 1.2 because Michael Wilson did miss this week. I mean, it's just what we expected. There's not too much else to say on it with getting rid of Josh Dobbs. Obviously, with Kyler Murray, it's going to be a lot different. I think Hollywood and Trey McBride are going to get a huge boost from that. And obviously, when James Conner returns, he will get that huge boost as well. But if it for some reason is Clayton Tune again next week, it's going to be around more of the same.
Yeah, it won't be as bad because they're not playing the Browns again. So
there's hope.
But not much.
No, I mean, not a single person on the Cardinals even got double-digit fantasy points. That just shows how. Yeah, it was terrible. A great week for Deshaun to come back and kind of get his bearings back playing against a Cardinals team with Clayton Tune.
All right, I'm going to keep it 100. Did you see the touchdown?
Which one?
The one that bounced off of another
helmet. And Cooper caught it?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's my fantasy wide receiver, catching touchdowns. Yeah.
I don't know about Deshaun, man. I do not know about Deshaun
I mean, he
Watts.
hasn't played football consistently in it feels like 3 years. I mean, he hasn't gotten completely acclimated. I mean, he had the whole offseason. There's no excuse this season, even dealing with the injuries. It is what it is. But I mean, for fantasy purposes, one of the touchdowns did bounce off a helmet and was caught by Amari. But Watson finished with, I mean, a solid week. 19 of 30, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 3 carries, 22 yards, 18.96 fantasy points. I mean, again, just for fantasy purposes, he finished a solid week. But again, yeah, I agree. Deshaun has not looked as sharp as we would have hoped. I mean, they are.
Yeah, and we're about to go into week 10 of this. That's the only thing that's like, it's like, yeah, I do 100%. I mean, you can't sit here and act like he's been playing every single week, because he hasn't. And I completely agree with you. It's different when you're not playing football in real games with your team. But it's like,
yeah,
you got paid all this money to play football, man.
Well, they go to Baltimore next week, so we'll get to see if Deshaun's.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's why I'm like, I don't know about Deshaun, because I don't want going out and like starting him off of that. Like, oh, Deshaun's back. Yeah, but they're going into Baltimore next week, and this completely unbiased. You got to look at what the Ravens did to the Seahawks this past week, and wonder if, can I really start Deshaun against that defense?
Yeah, I mean, we'll cover that when we're going over the previews. But yeah, Deshaun,
That's
a solid week for this week. Yeah, but going forward, we'll talk more about it. But
breaks a little.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
Jerome Ford, still the workhorse in this backfield. He seems healthy and back to normal.
Yeah.
20 carries for only 44 yards, but 20 carries. I guess when you're up that much, you're just running the ball. 5 catches out of the backfield for 33 yards on 7 targets, 12.7 fantasy points, 64% of snaps. He's going to get the lion's share. That's just how it's going to be. Kareem Hunt stuck right around what I expected from him. I mean, 14 carries, 38 yards. He got a touchdown. Only got 1 target out the backfield. Didn't catch it. 9.8 fantasy points, 29% of snaps. And that's right where we've talked about Kareem falling, is somewhere in that 25 to 40% of snaps you're going to see him play. It's just about what he does in those. He's been productive with those snaps. Again, gets a touchdown in this game, saves his fantasy day. If you happen to start him, he didn't completely burn you. 9.8 isn't terrible, but it's not great by any means.
And I mean, I called the Browns running backs as my starts of the week, and I just expected a lot more efficiency.
Yeah,
honestly, they did not none of them ran the ball efficiently, so that was just kind of disappointing to see. But yeah, as far as Jerome, something that I said when they signed Kareem Hunt, that I'm not worried about it, as far as it's like, you can't just have. He's not Saquon Barkley. You can't have the guy run the ball 36 times in a game. You need someone to spell him. Kareem Hunt's been on the team, but at the same time, they cut Kareem Hunt comfortable with Jerome Ford being their backup running back. So obviously, it's not, the hierarchy is not going to change just because the top guy got hurt. So yeah, I mean, and we're seeing that.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's all.
And something else I feel like we're seeing and we've seen is, for wide receivers or pass catchers, not running backs, for the Browns, your only 2 real reliable ones is Amari Cooper, who caught 5 passes on 5 targets, 139 yards and a touchdown off someone's helmet for 24.9 fantasy points, and then David Njoku, 4 catches, 26 yards on 6 targets for a touchdown, 12.6 fantasy points. Elijah Moore I'm going to mention because, I mean, he had 2 catches for 14 yards on 2 targets, 3.4. He's the wide receiver 2 there, but I don't even know if I feel comfortable rostering him. Like, he's just consistently not even getting around double digits. He has a lot of very mediocre weeks. And they got rid of Peoples-Jones. I thought maybe Elijah Moore is going to get targeted more. This was a perfect game to do it, and it didn't happen again. I don't know. I'm just not sold on Elijah Moore. He has not taken the step that I figured he would take.
Nah, he did better with PJ Walker. But that just could be that. I think could be one of those things, like how you said Deshaun isn't very acclimated. Well, PJ Walker's played more games with Elijah Moore as a Brown than Deshaun has at this point. So it does make sense. Deshaun's actually played a little bit with Amari Cooper and David Njoku.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
But yeah. You got anything else for that one?
The Browns defense scored 24 points, which was
Yeah,
obvious.
that was a smash start.
Them
we were saying
that was an obvious one.
There's not. Yeah.
No, that's all.
Moving on to another NFC West versus AFC North matchup. The Seahawks traveled to Baltimore and got destroyed. For me, it was an amazing game to watch. Mm-hmm. Pretty funny because there were no points scored in the first quarter. And then the Ravens just started running the ball very successfully. Mm-hmm. Geno. Whew. Another awful game. In fact, he scored under 5 fantasy points in this game. 13 for 28, 157 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, 2 rushing attempts for 4 yards, and 1 fumble lost. I'm not even going to elaborate on that. On to Ken Walker. 9 attempts, 16 yards, 1 catch on 2 targets for 1 yard, a whopping 2.7 fantasy points.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, the Ravens had been giving up decent whether or not like they were giving up good real life. Like Jahmyr Gibbs had a good day. DeMarcado almost had 10 points. I was expecting Ken Walker to be able to have some effect. But the Ravens defense just shut everything down. I mean, the best play of the day for the Seahawks was a 50-yard pass to DK Metcalf. I think they scored their lone field goal on that drive. That was it.
Yeah.
It was ugly, man. Like, you had Charbonnet, 4 attempts, 8 yards, 1 catch, 5 yards, 2.3 points. Noah Fant, 1 target, didn't catch it. Colby Parkinson, 1 target, caught it for 6 yards. Will Disley, 1 target, did not catch it. DK, like I said, caught the 1 pass on 4 targets, 50 yards, giving him 6 points. Lockett caught 3 passes on 8 targets for only 32 yards, 6.2 points. JSN was the only person on the Seahawks to reach double-digit fantasy points. He caught 6 passes on 7 targets for 63, giving him 12.3. We'd been saying JSN is a guy, you're ramping him up. They are ramping him up, obviously. He's getting a lot more looks. Him and Geno are building some rapport. We talk about how through the second half of the year, the rookie wide receivers start to boom. Ta-da! And it's happening. So, yeah, that's about it for the Seahawks side of the ball. Pretty bleak. Lamar, despite, winning and winning big, you'd like to look at the score and think he had a pretty crazy day, but he did not. The Ravens rushed for almost 200 yards, or 300 yards, and it was kind of them just imposing their will. Once they realized they could run the ball without being stopped, that's kind of what they did. Yeah. Lamar threw the ball. He was 21 for 26, 187 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown because running backs scored 3 of them. 10 attempts for 60 yards, though, so that kind of saved his day a little bit. 11.48 points. Obviously not the best day, but better day than guys like Justin Herbert and Geno Smith and a few others had. So it did not kill you, but it did not win you anything. Gus Edwards, on the other hand, he might have won you a week. Now, this is the funny thing. Gus Edwards scored 17.2 points. How many rushing attempts would you guess that he had? Knowing what 15? The Ravens have been doing. Gus Edwards had 5 attempts.
Yeah.
For 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. He only played 18% of the snaps, 14 snaps. That's all Gus Edwards played in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They're completely different from what the Ravens have been doing. Yet, like we said, when they get to the goal line, they've realized we're putting in Gus Edwards and running the ball. And that's what they did twice. That's why I got 2 touchdowns. But the guy who got the most work in this game was Justice Hill. 48 snaps. And it's weird. He gets 63%. Gus gets 18. Justice Hill ran the ball 13 times. Got 1 target. It was just so confused. They were just clearly in this game realized that they could run the ball. They would run the ball. They weren't going to throw the ball more than they had to unless it's like 3rd and long, whatever the situation may be where they had to throw. And they just didn't. So they were just rotating guys out.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So yeah, Justice finished with 4 points. The kind of hero of the day, in my opinion, because I've been waiting for this for a while. The rookie running back Keaton Mitchell. Oh man, it makes sense why we didn't trade for a running back now. Because I mean, we saw him do this in the preseason, and yes, that's the preseason. But he'd gotten a shoulder injury, and at that time, J.K. Dobbins was healthy, so his path wasn't really there. Then J.K. gets hurt. Here we are. 9 attempts, 138 yards and a touchdown on 9 attempts. That's just insane. And the Seahawks were a good run defense. That's another thing. The Seahawks pass defense was fairly weak, but their run defense was good. So this is just incredible. He also caught 1 pass for -4 yards, but he finished at 20.4 points, like I mentioned earlier. Great day. Mark Andrews, 9 catches on 10 targets, 80 yards, 17 points.
Solid.
Obviously, Mark's going to do Mark things, even in games where the Ravens don't throw the ball. As you see, Lamar passed for 187. 80 of those went to Mark. He is the guy, the number 1 target. Zay Flowers didn't have a big day. Like I said, they didn't need to pass. He only got 1 target, caught it for 11 yards, 2.1 points. Aguilar, same thing. 1 target, caught it, 5 yards, 2 yards, 1.2 points. Rashad Bateman, as I said, is going to be the one starting to kind of ramp up. 3 catches on 5 targets, 28 yards, only 5.8 points. Odell, it was his birthday, and they went out and they got him his touchdown, first touchdown as a Raven. It was with Tyler Huntley in because they pulled Lamar for the whole 4th quarter. That's how bad
this game was.
The Seahawks were getting beat. Yeah. Lamar only played 3 quarters of this game, which, as a Ravens fan, it's great to see your quarterback only have to play 3 quarters of a game.
Mm-hmm.
But OBJ caught 5 passes on 7 targets, 56 yards and a touchdown, 14.6 points. I love to see it. He finally got in.
Yeah.
He finally got in, man. But yeah, that's it. Pretty brutal beatdown, one-sided game. So
no, it was, and I mean the only thing I want to add is, last season fantasy-wise, Geno finished as QB5. He's currently QB24. We talked about, was it an anomaly season? It's looking like it was, and with Geno not performing like he did last season, that's why we're not seeing the consistency from Lockett. That's why Ken Walker can't get it done on the ground, because Geno can't get it done through the air. So they're just going to stuff the run. It's very concerning. It is very concerning, especially because the backup is Drew Lock. So it's not like you're going to make a pivot to Drew Lock and have hope that it would be better.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't even like necessarily Geno's fault. Like the pick was, the Ravens defense was just better than the Seahawks offense on Sunday.
Yeah.
And that was it. Granted, we have not seen the Seahawks perform that great.
Mm-hmm.
But in the week prior, they did beat the Browns, and that is an impressive feat. Yeah. So it's just weird. I mean, you'd like to hope that this offense, like a few others, like the Chiefs, kind of can pick it up a little bit, because we've seen great things out of them. And it's like, we drafted some of these players really high, really high. We would like to see something, please.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
yeah.
That'll take us to our next game, which were the Commanders taking on the Patriots in New England.
It was actually A good football game.
I mean, a good football game. Fantasy-wise, though, I mean, it was good for a couple players, I guess. Sam
The ones you
Howell.
expected.
Yeah, Sam Howell being one of them. 29 of 45, 325 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 5 carries, 27 yards, 18.7. Sam Howell's been solid. I mean, he's a guy that depending your quarterback situation, if you have to start him, I mean, they just pass the ball so much that it's hard not to start him.
I mean, man, I won with the Howell and Dotson stack in Dynasty.
I mean, yeah. No, it absolutely. I mean, the two receivers, because we had Curtis Samuel missing. So, Scary Terry does a normal Scary Terry week, 5 catches, 73 yards on 7 targets, 12.3. I mean, could have been better, could have been worse.
Yeah, you were
It's just,
hoping for better. Yeah.
it's a normal, like,
Definitely could have been worse.
yeah,
Definitely
it's a
could've been.
Scary Terry stat line. Jahan Dotson has been hot with Curtis Samuel out. 4 catches, 69 yards on 8 targets, a touchdown, 16.9 fantasy points. We saw Jamison Crowder obviously is still getting his run. 4 catches for 23 yards on 6 targets, played 47% of snaps, 6.3. We saw Byron Pringle get some run, 3 catches, 55 yards, 8.5. Obviously, I'm not looking to roster either of those. I'm more interested in Crowder than Pringle, just because it seems like they target the crap out of Crowder when he's in the game. And then Logan Thomas I expected a little more from him. He's really the one that I expected a little more from. 4 catches, 31 yards on 6 targets, 7.1 fantasy points. But again, I mean, the score was 20-17. There wasn't too many touchdowns to go around. One of them was Jahan Dotson. The other one was Brian Robinson on the ground. He is a player that I just don't know. I mean, 18 carries, 63 yards, that touchdown. 1 catch for 4 yards on 2 targets, 11.7 fantasy points, 56% of snaps. Antonio Gibson is not going away. And this game, Antonio Gibson outscored him. 6 carries, 34 yards, 5 catches, 42 yards, caught all 5 of his targets, 12.6 fantasy points, 44% of snaps.
Yeah.
It's just that Brian Robinson does not seem to get even a fair share of volume out the backfield, and there's been games where they can't run the ball efficiently, and when those games occur, he just gets left out of the game plan. And I mean, he had those first 2 really good weeks, and since then he's been kind of inconsistent. Like, he's a guy, I hope he's not one of your like top 2 running backs. Like, I mean, I don't mind plugging him in if you have to. He normally gets you at least, 6, 7, 8 points, but those weeks of him scoring 15, 20, I just don't know if we are going to see too many more of those. He's a guy I'm just not crazy confident in anymore.
I mean, their next 4 games are Seattle, Giants, Dallas, and Miami. Dallas is going to be tough. I don't think he'll be startable that game. Seattle, I don't know. We just saw the Ravens for like 300 yards on them.
But that's the Ravens. They're known for running.
That is true. But the pass should open up the box a little bit with how much Washington passes. So that, I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily afraid to start him next week. The Giants obviously startable then. Dallas, no. Miami.
Yeah, I mean,
Kyler Murray has been officially activated and is set to make his debut.
Yeah.
So there we have that about the Cardinals. Yeah, Brian, he's like that. He reminds me of Najee, except Najee's obviously starting to perform better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of the vibe he gives me. It's like, you can put him in there and he won't. I mean, his worst week is 7 points.
But he just has a lot of like 7 to 11 point weeks. A lot of them. A
Yeah, I
lot.
mean, yeah. Week 3, he scored 7. That was against Buffalo. Week 5 in Chicago, or against Chicago, he scored 8.3. 8.3 against New York. 9.9 against Philly.
Yeah. It's right on trend. He's not going to completely burn you, but, his ceiling has been dropped a little bit
Oh,
in comparison to the
yeah.
first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And speaking of guys with low ceilings, this is a very low ceiling. That is Mac Jones in fantasy. I mean,
Okay, well, I mean,
he threw the ball 44 times, completed 24 of them, 220 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 3 carries, 3 yards, 12.1 fantasy points.
if you are down bad to the point where you are starting Mac Jones in fantasy, I highly recommend just
Not
let it
playing
go.
fantasy. Yeah, and that's
Just let it go for this year. It's done.
Yeah. Someone who again had another solid week was Mondre. Only carried the ball 9 times for 87 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches on 6 targets, 42 yards, 22.9 fantasy points. We're starting to see Mondre come back to life. Love to see him string together a couple of consistent weeks. Played 63% of snaps. That's right in line with what we expect from him. Zeke, 6 carries, 17 yards, 3 catches on 5 targets, 15 yards, 6.2 points, 39% of snaps. Again, Zeke's a good handcuff if you have Mondre. Outside of that,
Yeah.
he's not going to be a viable fantasy start unless Mondre misses time. We were excited to see what Demario Douglas would do this week, and he had a fair day. I mean, 5 catches, 55 yards on 7 targets, 10.5 fantasy points, played 83% of the snaps. Solid
Don't
week
hate
for him.
that.
No.
Don't hate that.
This is kind of a funny.
I actually like that. I actually do like. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Juju?
Yeah, Juju played 36% of snaps and got targeted 7 times and caught 6 of them for 51 yards, 11.1.
The funniest thing that happened in this game was he catches the pass on 4th down to keep the game alive, and the very next play. The very next play, the ball bounces off his hands for the game-sealing interception.
It's the Juju experience, man.
Juju
I mean,
give it and Juju take it.
it's just. I trust Demario Douglas more than I trust Juju at this point.
Yeah.
Due to health alone. Demario Douglas is available. He's playing on the field. He played 83% of snaps. I guess the last guy, Hunter Henry, who has been abysmal since those first 2 weeks, got in the end zone again and had a solid fantasy day. 4 catches, 39 yards on 7 targets with that touchdown, 13.9. Again, Shift covered how many tight ends had solid fantasy weeks this week.
Yeah, so I didn't even put him in the top 10 this week, which was insane.
Yeah, so he
usually that would be like tight end 4.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, still the only 2 guys I'm interested. Mondre is back to being a guy you have to start every week, and
Yes.
Demario Douglas should definitely be rostered. Juju, I guess I am keeping an eye on, but I'm still higher on Demario as of now. And that's really it on the Patriots side of the ball. Like, I'm not really interested in anyone else.
I agree with you there, brother. The game gave us some more scoring than I thought it would personally, especially from the Patriots side of the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of got what we expected. In this next game, I did not expect this at all. Maybe because Arthur Smith is just getting what he deserves. But the Vikings were able to go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons.
Unbelievable.
It was okay. I'm not gonna say it was funny because getting a concussion, as someone who has gotten them, is never funny. But what was funny was Derek said that we might end up seeing Josh Dobbs in this
And
one
we did.
if Jaron Hall ended up performing bad. Well, he didn't end up performing bad. The dude just got knocked out of the game. So out of nowhere, here comes Josh Dobbs, who has not practiced with this team one time. He is on the sideline before the game going over cadences with the offensive line.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys understand how bad that is.
Mm-hmm.
On the day of the game, going over, it's insane. But like we've said about the guy, he is a literal rocket scientist. He has an astronomics degree or an aerospace engineering degree from the University of Tennessee. So I guess learning plays in the matter of a day isn't that big of a deal to this guy, because he went out there 20 for 30, 158, 2 touchdowns, 7 attempts, 66 yards, a touchdown on the ground, lost 2 fumbles, but still 24.9 fantasy points. Dude just went out there and played backyard football in an opposing team's stadium and won. It's incredible stuff. Like Josh Dobbs beat the villain Arthur Smith from folk hero. Amazing. Love the guy. It was great to see. Yeah, because Arthur Smith and Falcons, we'll get to you in just a second.
Yeah.
Alex Madison, another unfortunate thing happened in this game. Cam Akers tore his other Achilles. I don't believe that he will. I mean, when you tear both of your Achilles, I think that might be a sign that you can go ahead and let it go. I mean, I feel awful for the guy. In the game, he had 8 attempts for 25 yards, 3 catches for 13 yards before he went down with that. It's just disappointing to see. But as that goes, the trade deadline has passed. The Vikings will not be able to trade for another running back. Therefore, Alexander Madison will be their workhorse for the rest of the year. This team is sitting in a position where they can actually make playoffs. And yes, Madison is a guy that I'm very interested in for the rest of the year at this point. 16 attempts for 44 yards, 2 catches. 2 catches on 2 targets for 49 yards, a touchdown. How he managed that is insane. Finished with 17.3 points. And I think Madison now is going to be the guy that people wanted him to be during the draft season.
Yeah.
And he's finally made it there. TJ Hawkinson, good day, fairly average for him, I'd say. 7 catches, 12 targets for 69 yards, 13.9 points. It's a good day for a tight end.
Yeah, it's solid.
But as we talked about, that didn't even get him in the top 10. So hopefully you weren't playing against someone who had like Jake Ferguson or Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
KJ Osborne. This game was just riddled with injuries on the side of the Vikings because KJ Osborne was knocked out cold for a few minutes. It was pretty bad. Ended up like when he was going out on the cart, put his thumbs up and was smiling and everything. So he's okay, but definitely concussed. Caught 2 passes on 2 targets for 17 yards before he went out. But yeah, that's 3 guys in 1 game. That's not very good.
No.
And they still won. Somehow. Still won the game. Lost 3 guys on the offensive side of the ball. Anyways, Jordan Addison, 5 catches, 7 targets, 52 yards. I'd assume that in the weeks coming with Josh Dobbs, we've seen him be successful, and there were good days with Hollywood Brown. There were good days with Michael Wilson, with Trey McBride. I think that Hawkinson and Addison will be just fine, especially as he gets acclimated into the system. I think he has a better team around him than he did in Arizona.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be good for him. Brandon Powell, 2 catches on 3 targets, caught the game-winning touchdown, 15 yards, 9.5 points. I mean,
if Osborne misses next week, now Powell's number 2. He's just moving up the depth chart.
Yeah. Will that result in him getting more? Addison and Hawkinson just both getting 10 plus? We're going to have to see. Yeah. But I think it might result in the latter. He's still an option that's interesting because he will be the wide receiver too. But yeah. Taylor Heineke in his first start for the Falcons. 21 for 38, 268 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 3 rushing attempts for 20 yards, 15.7 fantasy points. It's Taylor Heineke-esque. Just doing Taylor Heineke things. Bijan Robinson lost a fumble in this game, which was unfortunate, but had 11 attempts for 51 yards, 2 catches on 4 targets, and 8 receiving yards for a whopping 5.9 points. Now, my issue with all of this, Bijan played 42 snaps, and Algier played 24, while Algier out-carried Bijan Robinson, got 1 more rushing attempt for 12 less yards and a touchdown. Also caught 2 passes on 3 targets for 9 yards, giving him 11 points. My issue is I really don't understand why when they get down to the line, sure, Algier was able to get in one time, but the first time they passed the ball to Jonnu Smith on 1st and 2nd and goal, ran the ball with Tyler Algier on 3rd and goal. Obviously, he got stuffed that time.
Mm-hmm.
He's trash. And then kick a field goal. Falcons end up losing by 3.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much of a dumbass you have to be to sit there and consistently every week say, oh, well, I know more about football. Fantasy football, I don't care about. See, my issue with that, you didn't do a fantasy draft and pick Bijan in the first round, Kyle Pitt. That's real life. And just because your daddy owns FedEx and you can do whatever the hell you want, it's like, hey, I'm glad I'm not a Falcons fan, but dude, like, you're losing your team games because you are so stupid that you refuse to play your best players.
Mm-hmm.
Why you refuse to give the ball to Bijan Robinson at the goal line? I don't get it. I truly do not understand. And then they lose the game by 3 points to a quarterback who did not practice once with the team. Like, bro, you deserve that. You deserve that. Every single ounce of embarrassment you get from that, you deserve. That's ridiculous. And he's not on the hot seat because his daddy's friends with Arthur Blank, and he's not going to get fired. It's just disgusting. He should be in the same place as Josh McDaniels right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, war crimes. Anyways, So Jonnu Smith, 5 catches on 6 targets for 100 yards and a touchdown, giving him 21 fantasy points. Kyle Pitts, 4 catches on 5 targets, 56 yards, 9.6. Matt Collins, 3 targets, 3 catches, 36 yards, 6.6 points. He did exit this game with an injury. Van Jefferson, 1 catch on 4 targets for 14 yards, 2 points. And Kadero Hodge was a guy that I mentioned in the preview of this game just because he was seemingly getting a lot of targets in the last game. And lo and behold, in the receiver room, it was yet again this week. Not in all of the pass catchers, obviously, because that was Jonnu Smith. But God forbid if Jonnu Smith and Kadero Hodge aren't your 2 leading receivers. Caught 3 passes on 6 targets for 60 yards, 9 points. No longer want to talk about this game. Oh, Younghoe Koo, my guy, scored a shit ton of points. But yeah, that's it. Don't want to talk about the Falcons anymore.
Yeah. You know, I wish I had a better game to transition to, but I do not because I have the Rams at the Packers. The Packers won this game 20-3, and I mean the Packers, I guess, deserve to win, but at this point, I don't know if the Packers deserve anything.
On the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I mean, well, because Matthew Stafford did not play, it was Brett Rypien. We just saw the Rams signed Carson Wentz after they saw how Rypien just played against a Packers defense that has not been that great. It's just, yeah, I'm not going to harp on it. Brett Rypien finished with 4.1 fantasy points. His stats don't even matter because
like Clayton Tune gets a pass. That's your first start against the Browns defense in Cleveland. Brett Rypien has been in the league.
Yeah, he shouldn't be. I mean,
You're right.
It's just, yeah. I mean,
that's crazy.
Darrell Henderson, 10 carries, 19 yards, 2 catches on 2 targets, 16 yards, 5.5 fantasy points. He played 59% of snaps. Royce Freeman, 12 carries, 32 yards, a single target, 41% of snaps, 3.2 fantasy. It was just a terrible week all the way around. I mean, Cooper Kupp, 7 targets, only caught 2 for 48 yards, 6.8. Puka, 7 targets, caught 3, 32 yards, 6.2. Tutu Atwell, 7 targets, caught 4, 13 yards, 5.3. Tyler Higbee, 1 target, didn't catch it. He's just running with his money in his pockets. It does not matter. If Matt Stafford can't go in their next game, it has to be Carson Wentz. And I will have endlessly more faith that these guys will have productive days. If it is Brett Rypien, you just can't. He is bad.
If Brett Rypien goes, can you start Rams? Honestly. He completely tanked the value.
They have a bye, right? They have a bye.
Oh, it'll definitely be Carson. They'll have a whole week of practice to get him out.
They have a bye, and then it's week 11. So it'll be.
There's no way.
Yeah, it'll be Carson. But in the off chance to answer the question though, they play Seattle week 11 division game. I don't think so. It's crap. That's crazy to say though. Like you'd have Cooper Kupp on your bench. Yeah. No, we just saw it. It's bad.
Wow, man. It's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no. Realistically, you can't. But
it's the worst case scenario. Like legitimately the worst case scenario. And what's crazy is on the other side of the ball, it wasn't even. In my opinion, it's not even that much better. Like Jordan Love.
It was for one guy. One single guy.
No, it
was a sigh of relief.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Jordan Love, 20 of 26, 228 yards, a single touchdown, 4 carries for 7 yards, 13.82. We talked about it last week. Jordan Love's just not a guy that we can look at to start at this point. He has fizzled out, and it's weird because his team's healthy now. He had all his weapons. Aaron Jones was a full go.
2 guys.
Yeah, no, 2 guys. Aaron Jones, happy to see him finally back. 20 carries, 73 yards, a touchdown, 4 catches on 6 targets, 26 yards, 17.9, and 57% of snaps. We're going to see that snap percent increase. It's going to get above 60. And he's going to start scoring 15-plus fantasy points on a consistent basis. Aaron Jones, it looks like, has returned. A.J. Dillon will go back to where he belongs, and that is the backup. And he still played 40. I thought
you were going to talk about streaming Farm Simulator.
Oh my God. No, that'll be his full-time job a couple years from now. He can continue to be the backup for now. A.J. Dillon played 40% of snaps, but we saw his volume drastically decrease. 9 carries, 40 yards, a single catch, a single target, 3 yards, 5.3. He's fading back to a handcuff if you have Aaron Jones. Here's where I'm just like, this receiver room, Jordan Love completed 20 passes. 5 of them were to his running back. So there's 15 passes, completions that went around through the receivers and the tight end. I don't know if Jordan Love's terrible, or I don't know if Christian Watson is a fraud as a wide receiver 1. I don't know. But he's
like,
he's...
And what's a good example? He's like almost like Kadarius Toney was on the Giants. He can't stay on the field. He cannot stay healthy.
I mean, okay, in this one, he played 78% of snaps before he had that injury. He avoided a concussion. So he should be good to go.
No, but it is. It's like every game.
It's something.
Every single game.
It is something.
He's like made out of glass, I swear.
No, I 100% agree. My point is he played 78% of snaps, only saw 2 targets, caught 1 of them, 37 yards, 4.7 fantasy points, 2 targets for their wide receiver 1 against Brett Rypien in the Rams in 78% of snaps.
My whole thought on it is like kind of like the Elijah Moore, Deshaun Watson thing. Last year when he was booming, that was with Aaron Rodgers. That was who he had rapport with.
Yeah.
He gets hurt. I'm pretty sure he missed most of the offseason and the preseason, missed a decent little chunk of the regular season. So he comes in. He hasn't played any real football with Jordan Love. So, I mean, I do understand it from that point because Jaden Reed and Dobbs have been there like every game.
Well, okay, I 100% agree with that. And then my problem with that is Christian Watson, 2 targets, right? Doesn't have the rapport. Dobbs does. 3 targets, 3 catches, 36 yards, 6.6. What do you do with that? You go to Jaden Reed, 3 targets, 3 catches, 19 yards, a single rush, 21 yards, 7 fantasy points. Dontavion Wicks, 4 targets, 4 catches, 49 yards, 6.9 fantasy points. He lost a fumble. That's why, or else it would have been 8.9. I'm just like, they're spreading this ball out so far to so many different guys on like a very low level. It is crazy to look at these guys fantasy wise. I liked Romeo Dobbs a lot. He's fizzled out fantasy wise. I like Jaden Reed. He's a rookie. He doesn't get enough consistent targets. He only played 39% of the snaps. Dontavion Wicks only played 32% of snaps. So then you're like, okay, it's got to be Christian Watson. It's got to be Romeo Dobbs. And it's just not. It's not. I guess if you like Dobbs, Jaden
It's
Reed.
genuinely just Musgrave.
No, it is. And Dobbs, Jaden Reed, and Wicks, I'm not mad at because no one drafted them very high. Christian Watson is the guy that is the most disappointing. These other guys, it's like, okay, you picked them up off waiver. Maybe they're not viable anymore. You have to drop them. Whatever. Christian Watson, you drafted him like 5th, 6th round. You're kind of stuck with him. Yeah, like you said, Luke Musgrave, and even him, he caught a touchdown, which gave him the good fantasy day. But he only got 4 targets, 3 catches, 51 yards. He caught the touchdown, 14.1 fantasy. How many guys? None of these guys got more than 5 targets. None of them.
This one was, I think this was one kind of like the Ravens and Seahawks game where the Packers haven't been throwing the ball well.
No.
So they're like, if we don't have to put ourselves in a position where we can give the other team the ball,
we're not going to do it.
Jordan Love make mistakes, we're not going to do it. And we're not going to throw the ball a whole bunch when we don't have to. I think that's going to be honestly, that might be how they roll with Aaron Jones being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're just going to try to run.
I'm concerned with every single Packers pass catcher. Even Musgrave, he got the touchdown, but it's just they just don't pass it.
I mean, yeah, I think in games where never mind. I think in games where they are playing from behind, it's going to be different. But
yeah,
you know, when you're playing against Brett Ripon, you don't have to do anything. So yeah.
No, but that's all I had. It's ugly.
Yeah, my final game, not ugly at all. Probably, to this point at least, the game of the year.
Yeah.
That was the Tampa Bay Bucks going into Houston and the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
This was a game that I was fairly for, CJ Stroud, Schultz, some of these guys, because it had been, they came off the bye and lost to the Panthers. So I was like, what's going on here? I want to wait a week at least before I throw all these guys out there. Well, in 1 week, I happened to be back, or in one league, I happened to be backed into a corner with Trevor Lawrence on bye, and I started CJ. Well, oh my God. As we talked about, best fantasy performance ever from a rookie. 30 for 42, 470 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
1 rushing attempt for 10 yards, 1 2-point conversion, 41.8 points.
Have a day.
Wow. Just wow. Devin Singletary. What the hell, man? He gets his opportunity. He's the only guy. I mean, Dameon Pierce didn't even play in this game, man. He gets 13 attempts.
Yeah.
2 yards a carry. 26 yards. Caught 2 passes for nothing.
The
For
Texans'
nothing.
O-line is not good. They can't run.
4.6 points for Devin Singletary. No, they cannot. And then this is where, all right, Dalton Schultz, I'm sorry for doubting you. I'll never do it again. 10 catches on 11 targets for 130 and a touchdown. You made me look stupid, and I'm sorry. I'll never doubt you again. Noah Brown, a guy who I brought up last week. I don't even understand. I mean, okay, a large chunk of this came from I think it was like a 70-yard touchdown or something. But still, 6 catches on 6 targets for 153 and a touchdown.
Both of them were on the Cowboys. Just want to throw that in there. Both
Yes,
of them.
they were. Yes, they were. You know who else was on the Cowboys that had a crazy Amar?
Yeah.
All ex-Cowboys and CD, but we'll get to that, went off. It's just, good Lord. So yeah, Noah Brown, definitely worth looking at.
Yeah.
But the guy, the man himself, the small man with a large name, Tank Dell. Crazy. 6 catches on 11 targets, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, 29.6 points.
He was like a meme in preseason, but then that meme just turned out to be
Nah,
legitimate.
See, we watched
Very
that
legitimate.
Me watched that Patriots game, and it was like, hey, yo. So it's like, okay, preseason's preseason. You can't fake speed and the cuts and the agility. It's like, this dude's got it. We're like, this dude's got it. Shmi went and picked him up in Dynasty. Still has
He's
it.
got it.
Shmi drafted him. We're like, this dude's got it. And he does. He's got it, bro. That last, oh my God, that catch that he made on that last drive, it was like, we thought he was just going to be a little gadget slot receiver. Hell no. This does it all.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was one of the most fun games I have ever watched. Because if you didn't see it, the Bucs scored a touchdown with about 42 seconds left to go up. The Texans had to drive the length of the field and score a touchdown in that amount of time, and they successfully did. It was insane. Also, in this game, Dare Ogunbowale, backup running back for the Texans, have to shout him out because he kicked the field goal to put the Texans up 33-30. Just a whole bunch of insane things happened. And it's funny, the last guy to mention from the Texans is Nico Collins, who still had a solid day, but nothing like his counterparts. 3 catches on 5 targets, 54 and a touchdown, 14.4 points. It's a super solid day, but it's...
When you throw 450, 70, like...
3 other guys
everyone's
over
gonna
27 points. It's just insane.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Bucs side of the ball, though. Baker had a good day. 21 for 30, 265, 2 touchdowns, 4 attempts, 4 yards, 19 points, no turnovers that day. Would have had the game-winning drive, but obviously CJ Stroud did his thing. So Baker, you did what you could. I like Baker on the Bucs, especially because he's not a division rival anymore. Rachaad White, like I said, running back 1 on the week. Still very inefficient on the ground, but that doesn't matter, as we talked about, because 20 attempts, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 catches on 4 targets for 46 yards, 27.9. Amazing day. Cade Otton, tight end we mentioned, going over all the top ones of the week. He was 6 for 9, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 points for him. 4 of the touchdowns that the Bucs scored went to Rachaad White and Cade Otton. So I'm sure you can imagine, as I'm finishing, not going to be too great. Mike Evans, 4 catches, 5 targets, 87 yards, finished with 12.7. Kind of lackluster out of Mike Evans, especially given the score of this game. You'd like to look and think, oh, wow, 76 points scored in the game. Mike Evans had a great day. Not really.
No.
And even worse for his buddy, Chris Godwin, who also made me look stupid because I said, you got to start the guy. Well, he gets 6 targets, but he only catches 2 of them for 16 yards.
Mm-hmm. It is what it is sometimes.
That's how it goes, man.
Yeah.
Because things like Trey Palmer getting 3 catches on 4 targets for 51 yards, you can't predict that.
Yeah.
You just can't. There's no way we can know when, Trey Palmer's just going to have a random 50-yard game. And Chris Godwin's going to get 2 catches.
Yeah.
These are things, though, that when they happen, you cannot overreact. You genuinely can't. I know we talked about do we sit Cooper? That's a completely different situation because there is a quarterback there with the lack of ability to play the game of football. So that changes things. This is a bad week. That's different. One is a serious concern. The other's, I can't call it an anomaly, but the other, it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
And we move on and hope for better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got for this one.
All right. Well, that will take us to our final morning game, which was the Bears at the Saints. The Saints won 24-17. And
we were wrong, genuinely, about this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tyson Bagent,
I did not expect him to.
Well, he threw 3 interceptions, but he was...
That I did expect.
Yeah, but he was, I don't want to say efficient, but he was capable of passing the ball in this one. I mean, 18 of 30, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, those 3 interceptions we mentioned. Carried it 8 times for 70 yards. I mean, that's kind of Justin Fields-esque numbers on the ground. 70 yards rushing on 8 attempts. He kept him competitive. 18.8 fantasy points on the ground. Deontay Foreman, 20 carries for 83 yards. 8.3, 59% of snaps. Roschon Johnson only carried the ball twice for 6 yards. Had 1 target, caught it for 9, 2.5 fantasy points, 29% of snaps. I was asked if you had Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert, and Roschon Johnson on your fantasy roster, which one would you look to drop? Obviously not Khalil Herbert. You're dropping Roschon over Deontay at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean...
It's ugly.
I mean... Do you even want to roster Deontay Foreman at this point with Herbert coming back?
No. I think you drop both of them.
I was going to say, I don't even know if I want to have 2 Bears running backs rostered, just being...
Like, I guess you could wait to ensure that Khalil Herbert is returning, and when he does return, he's healthy.
And hold on to Foreman for that long, but when he comes back, no.
No, it just won't. So, but yeah, I figured we would cover that.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, your 2 guys with the big days, I mean, kind of similar to Nico Collins had a solid day, but Darnell Mooney, 6 targets, caught 5 of them, 82 yards, 13.2 fantasy points. Cole Kmet, 6 catches on 8 targets, 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23.5 fantasy points. DJ Moore was the odd man out with having the quiet week. 5 targets, caught 3 of them, 44 yards, lost a fumble, 5.4 fantasy points.
Yeah. It's funny, we had that whole discussion. Can you start Cole Kmet?
I hope
and
he
then
did.
He goes out and does so do I. But
he does seem to be that safety valve for Bagent. So
yeah.
And then to finish it, the Saints side of the ball, Derek Carr, we said he, would have a decent week. He came in, he underperformed a little bit from what I expected from him. 25 of 34, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 3 carries, 3 yards, 16.74. I thought you could book him for like 18 to 19. I guess
Taysom
16.7
Hill is
doesn't.
what hurts him
Well, yeah,
because Taysom threw a touchdown.
mm-hmm.
And if that goes to Derek Carr, that's 4 more points to Carr. So it's like that. It's funny because you never see this happen with running backs.
Mm-hmm.
You never see this happen with quarterbacks though.
No, you don't. It's
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, we'll go straight to Taysom Hill. I mean, he 5 targets, caught 4 of them,
that's the guy.
13 yards, a touchdown, threw a touchdown, carried the ball 11 times for 52 yards, 20.62 fantasy points, 46% of snaps. He is a must start. I saw that Sleeper has corrected he's projected 8 point something this coming week. And you know what? I think it should be a little higher. Whatever though. That's much more understandable than 2.8 coming into this game. Taysom Hill is going to be involved.
It's funny because, like I said, how I picked him up, I still ended up losing because half of my team just. But I'm probably gonna start Taysom and Alvin Kamara every week because
yeah, you should.
I mean, those are the 2 guys.
Yeah, no, you absolutely should. Yeah, I'll just keep flip flopping around. To go to the running backs. Kamara had his worst week since returning from suspension. 9 carries, 26 yards, 5 targets through the air, 4 catches for 44 yards. We're always going to see something like that through the air, if not more, from Kamara. 11 points flat. He played 49% of snaps. Jamal Williams actually saw his fair share of snaps, but his volume and usage in those snaps was much lower. 3 carries for 6 yards, 2 catches for 6 yards on 3 targets, 3.2 fantasy points. He played 43% of snaps. That's going to be the closest we see that snap share. And we saw Kamara still, Kamara 9 carries and 4 catches, so 13, 13 times he had the ball. Jamal Williams 5 times. It's just he's not going to.
There's nothing that worries me about Alvin Kamara.
No,
because he's just going to be solid. And the thing about Jamal, like he's not going to. When they get down to the goal line and whatnot, it's not going to be Jamal they use. It's going to be Taysom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jamal is not much more than a hand. And at that, like I said, I'd rather flex Taysom Hill every week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, some of
didn't even have him rostered.
Juwan Johnson came back, had a solid game. 5 catches, 29 yards on 5 targets, caught a touchdown. 13.9 fantasy points to Taysom. I mean, what are we're living in like, I just
tight ends throwing touchdowns to tight end.
Well, this is really some like high school football stuff where like you got this like hybrid quarterback type. It works.
That's what I was saying at the beginning of the episode that this week was crazy. And just to name a few of these top scores before we get into it, just to show how crazy it was.
Yeah. And then to finish it off, the receiving room, Chris Olave, solid day because he caught a touchdown. 6 catches, 46 yards with the touchdown on 8 targets, 16.6. Solid day. Rashid Shaheed, 3 catches for 22 yards on 3 targets, 5.2. We always say if he does not get that deep pass, you're going to get weeks like this. But that's what you live with when you have Rashid Shaheed. Michael Thomas, goose-egged, which... I mean, I'm not like overly concerned about it, but it was very weird. Yeah, he played 63% of snaps, only got a single target, didn't catch it. He goose-egged. And he has been 8 to 10 points at least every single week coming into this. So I'm not like freaking out over it or anything, but that does suck if you, and I'm sure a lot of Michael Thomas owners with guys on bye this week, you probably had to throw him in. And he goose eggs you the 1 week. Yeah. He's just like, let me not catch a single pass. It's this week. So it sucks to see, but I'm not overly worried about that with Michael Thomas.
No.
That's all I had.
And, we did say Groupie was a good start.
Yeah.
Kicker.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he did decent. But yeah, that'll be it for our morning games, guys. We're going to take a little break, come back with the afternoon games, Sunday night game, Monday night game, And that'll be it for the day. Tomorrow, we're going to come back with waivers and, start with the previews, give our starts and sits. So stay tuned for the next episode. We will be right back. Come back, take more reps with the first team.
Yes, sir.